Hello, everybody, and welcome to Droids Are Welcome Here, the fun Star Wars podcast where everybody, including those pesky droids, are welcome. Today, we're beginning our review of the Andor Season 2, starting with Episode 1. And today, myself and Jace are joined by our good friend Kerwin from over at Father Son Galaxy. Kerwin, thank you so much for joining us. It is fantastic to see you guys again. It's been too long.
Thank you so much, Jordan. Thank you, and congratulations on your new podcast.
Thank you, my friend. It is good to be here. It feels right. It feels good.
Yeah, yeah, this is great. It's this is what Star Wars is about. Like just having a conversation. We got a new series we can talk about. I think all of the Star Wars fans are very excited about this one, so can't wait to dive in. And good to meet you as well, Jace.
Yes, it's a pleasure.
All right, so we've got new season of Andor that everyone has been absolutely ecstatic for. Anyone who's been on social media knows that the internet has been a buzz, not only leading up to this, but since the three-episode premiere launched. That was a lot to take in episode one. What were your thoughts going into it?
Well, they kind of prepared us. We were told ahead of time that there are going to be 12 episodes and that there are going to be in blocks of three. And then between each of the three episodes, there's going to be 1 year gap in between. Um, what I like is that the three episodes they're very long. So, and when I say long, they're, almost an hour, which is good. It's, what I like about it is it requires viewing the episodes not just once, because sometimes you can miss something and then you can go back and look at it and review and take notes. So it's a lot of information that you're getting in the first three episodes, maybe a lot of exposition, but there's a reason for that because it's a lot of characters. They're setting up a great big storyline that's going to take place in these future episodes. So um, I'm all for it. This is the way all Star Wars should be. Like 30-minute episodes, I feel is not enough.
It's just not enough to take
That
it all in.
yeah, it just feels too short. But having something that's 45, 50, 55 minutes, this is awesome. So I have no complaints.
I completely agree. And I'll admit, I was skeptical coming in when I heard that we were doing it in blocks of three, because I was worried, is that going to be too much material to take in all at once? Is there going to be enough time for us to really, process all of it? But in reality, that just let them, have a lot more flexibility to set up this three episode. They could slowball it a little bit for, a bit of one of the episodes, but then just roll it right into the next. And I think it played out beautifully.
Right. And it's just like any story where you have like act one, act two, act three, beginning, middle, and end. So it's if you look at it as just one movie, for each of the three episodes. It's a 3 hour film.
Yeah.
That's really what it's about, you know. And with a 3 hour film, you're not going to catch everything all at once. So that's the reason why it's good to have second views, third views of the episodes, and you pick up a lot more when you have that much material.
Yeah, and like I thought I caught a lot of things going into it, but then immediately after I'm looking on, Twitter and I'm seeing I did not catch that in the background. Like I didn't catch that the planet they ended up featuring in the first three ended up being Yavin 4 that the rebels were on. Like I didn't catch that, and I thought that was just fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I was just going through watching the episodes again and listening to other podcasters. And right, you talking about that scene where Andor crashes, or he lands on this planet, and you got these marauders or rebels. They're kind of like um, you know, they're confused. There's no leadership. They don't know what they're doing. They're a ragtag group. They're trying to put things together, and they really are not sure what direction to go because there's no leadership. I had no idea. I'm hearing from more than one content creator that is supposed to be Yavin, which I don't know how they know that, but yeah,
So
exactly.
I was looking at it after, and I noticed at the end of one of the episodes they did a little kind of pan up, and they showed the background. You can see like all the temples in the background, and I'm thinking that's what people are getting that from.
Okay, okay.
Jace, what was your thought coming into the episode? So obviously Andor was one of the newer ones that you've seen, but what was your thoughts?
Hey, basically a new Star Wars movie every week, every other week. I'll take it.
Every single week for the next what 4 more weeks.
Something like that, yeah. I mean, for me, that might be a lot to take in all at once, but if you don't want to watch all 3 episodes at once, then just don't.
So we opened up into that episode. We've got, a shot of him effectively sneaking his way into a Cinar test facility. And when they mentioned Cinar, I absolutely, she can attest that I screamed out loud and just yelled out like a madman, Cinar!
Meanwhile, I'm just here going, what is he talking about?
Yeah, I'm like, that's Cinar Fleet Systems. They made the TIE Fighter. And I think I nerded out to you for like a solid 5 minutes about the history of it.
See, you're a former Wikipedia, so you have all this knowledge and information about, these Easter eggs. I when I saw the when I saw the name Cinar, it didn't, jar any memories of any test facilities that I've seen before. But the scene did remind me of something that the Rebels series, with Ezra, something that Ezra would go in and steal a TIE fighter or steal an Imperial shuttle. So this is nothing new to see a rebel doing the same thing here.
And I love the fact that as he's effectively working at this, I'm assuming this other character was intended to be like someone who's just joining the rebellion, someone who's just joining the movement, and it's almost like he's Cassian is confident, but he's still not the Cassian we know in Rogue One. So it's almost like he's telling her, it's gonna be okay, we're gonna do this, but it's almost like he's also convincing himself of that.
He's not perfect, which I like. Flawed characters to me are the most interesting characters. He's not one to say, "Well, I can do this, I can do that, I can do everything." Type, you can sense the fear, and the hesitation in Cassian, that trying to, you know, this person who was trying to help him get on the ship, just calming her nerves. And, she's very, very nervous. She doesn't want to look at him. And he understands what she's going through, because to me, that was the same. If you take a look at what happened in season one, that's him having that same conversation with Luthen. Luthen is the one,
Yeah.
telling him, okay, well, don't you want to get back at these people? And, don't you want to settle the score with them? And here we are, Cassian is playing the Luthen character, and he's telling her, it's okay to feel however it is you want to feel. This is your life that's on the line. Um, this you're doing this for a greater cause. Lack of better words. But when he gets in the ship and he looks at it and he's like, "Wow, what is all this? I have no idea how to work this thing," and that's great because he's not supposed to know. This is his first time breaking into a TIE fighter. Is probably one of the uh, earlier model that never been used before or never been seen before. That's why it's at a test facility. Who knows? Maybe it failed. I don't know if we've seen this type of TIE fighter in the future, but maybe something about it didn't work for the Imperials, and that's the reason why we don't see it anywhere else. But here we are. This rebel is trying to steal this ship, and he has no idea what he's doing. He wants to go forward, and the ship goes backwards, and he's firing, and he's just firing everywhere. He
Yeah.
has no, he can't, he can't focus in on a target. So it was a great scene. It was fantastic. That's the way it should be for someone who's doing something for the very first time. They're not going to get it the first time, but at some point he's going to figure it out.
And kudos to that because like you can see like in his face, it's the look of I thought I knew what I was doing, but I really don't. What the heck am I doing here? And like he's just working through the motions as he's doing it, and that's and kudos because that takes a lot of acting talent to pull off.
Yes, yeah, yeah. So Diego Luna, he's a star. We know that. So that didn't surprise me as to how he came into the scene, and must have had this conversation with the writers and the director that Cassian should lack some confidence, in what he's doing, right? Because this is something that's new to him. The rebellion is still fresh, so of course it's he's learning on the go. This is on the job training.
So Cassian gets into this ship, which actually I realized that after the fact was actually a TIE Avenger. So that's a nice little Legends throwback. The TIE Avenger originally appeared back in the Star Wars the computer TIE Fighter game, which is absolutely fantastic. I recommend everyone try it. But so Cassian gets in this fighter, has no idea what he's doing. He backs up into he literally reverses, he basically does the equivalent of hitting the gas and going backwards into a wall, goes up into the ceiling, but he figures it out. He just mows down these stormtroopers, and then he blasts his way out. And I'm on the edge of my seat this whole time, thinking like, "Oh, this is peak Star Wars right here."
Agree. Yeah, yeah. I liked. Well, what was interesting was I know it's a test facility. Maybe that's the reason why. You would think that as soon as someone is trying to break in, and try to steal a TIE fighter, that there'd be sirens going off, and you have these, hundreds of stormtroopers coming in and trying to stop. But I think there was only like 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah, it looked like it was just like a single squad or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, okay, well, this is a big deal. Like, you're going to need more than 4 or 5, stormtroopers to try to stop this TIE fighter. So I thought that was interesting. But I recall one of the stormtroopers had a cannon.
Yeah, it almost looked like a rocket launcher.
Right, a rocket launcher, and I don't know what happened. Like maybe the cannon backfired and it blew a hole into the door, and Andor was able to actually fire at the door to create a bigger hole and then escape. And that was pretty cool. That was awesome.
And I love the fact that it almost looks like they designed that off of like. So I'm a World War II history buff as well. So it almost looked like it was based on like a World War II German rocket launcher, and like that's just like I just thought that was a really cool addition.
It was the first 10 minutes was just awesome. It's what you would expect in an Andor series. They do such a good job of putting you in a situation where it's riveting. You're at the edge of your seat. You're excited. You don't know what's going to happen. So this is, you know, that's why season 1 was so successful. So this is nothing new. I was very excited about the way episode 1 started.
Absolutely. And then you see like the two TIE fighters take off after him, and like they're the same models that they used in like Rebels, and I love all the little throwbacks they gave to other series, like to Rebels. It's nice to see that.
Yeah, yeah, it felt like a Rebels episode. Absolutely. As I said before, that's something Zeb or Ezra would have done, is try to steal an Imperial ship.
So they get out, and I absolutely love the next scene where like he's dodging fire, he's trying to get away, and then he pulls a move straight out of The Last Jedi where he fires ahead and he literally boulders the TIE fighters. Jace, what were your thoughts during that?
I mean, I feel like if it's a test facility, they really should have had more guards there. I do agree with that. Instead of just one guy with like a rocket launcher and a couple of stormtroopers who can't aim if their life depended on it.
So I love the fact that like this ship is designed to be in dogfights. This thing is designed to take hits from laser cannons, and these guys walk up with effectively the equivalent like a pea shooter, and they're just like, "Oh yeah, we got this."
Yeah, it's well, stormtroopers are going to be stormtroopers. They're not the most skilled at it. Um, but it was a great scene. It was a great moment.
I like the fact that this was just like the first 10 minutes of it. I think that so I haven't seen anything ahead of these three. Were you guys on the advanced list?
Yeah, actually, we were fortunate enough to see all 12 episodes. So yes, yes. So we've seen all 12.
So I'm gonna and don't obviously you can't correct me, but I'm gonna assume then that this is a fair this is a good start to the series, that this is a good metric of this is how this series is going to be. It's going to be fast, it's going to be action packed, and it's going to be just pure riveting Star Wars.
Well, okay. I'm not going to give away spoilers, but be prepared. Andor is heavy dialogue. So you're going to get a lot of exposition, a lot of conversations, but the dialogue is very, like I said, I had to watch certain episodes more than once and really sit down and listen to what the characters are saying, and you learn so much about the characters and their motivation. That comes from the dialogue. So there is a lot of dialogue. Of course, there's action, but this is not the type of it's not Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like every 10 minutes, there's an action scene. It's not, but it is still riveting. It's not that much different than season one. So if you were a fan of season one, that pacing, you're gonna love season two.
I think that if these three are a good measure of it, I think yeah they've got the pacing down pat on this one.
Yeah, yeah. And in my honest opinion, I the first three episodes are actually not even the best of the 12 episodes. So it gets better.
And it's each 3 episode arc, so there's what, a year gap in between each arc.
Exactly. Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
I love the fact that then that also leaves a lot of room for if they want to explore it further in the future and do like a spin-off of, what happened in that year gap.
Mon Mothma spin-off when.
Yes, I'm totally in.
It's it's when they go, 1 year later, it's not obviously, the three episodes are a span of 1 year. It could be one day, it could be 1 week, it could be 1 hour, you know what I mean? So it's just that moment in time, there's something big is happening within that year. And then once, again, it's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And once that storyline is complete, then it jumps to another year later, and then it picks up again in another moment in time. So that's how it works up until the very end, where it's, you know, the idea is that the end of the series is supposed to uh, end right where Rogue One begins. So that's pretty much all I could say. Yeah.
Ooh, I do. I feel like I'm gonna be. I feel like once as we get into these next arcs, I'm gonna be messaging you, being like, "I did not expect that."
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm
Yeah.
I'm really glad you guys got managed to get on that list. Is like nobody deserves it more.
Well, yeah. So thank you very much. Yeah, we were surprised. I mean, I couldn't believe it when we got the email that wow, they give us all 12 episodes. They've never done that before, but I think that was the right idea because, you know, to it's like, you get a book and you got the last 20 pages missing in the book, right? You know what I mean? Like, okay, well, okay, this is like a cliffhanger. Like, how could you just give us these episodes and not know how it ends? So I think it just made sense that you just get the complete season. And then if I could say one more thing, there is an episode further down the line. I'm not going to tell you which one that I believe is the best Star Wars television I've ever seen.
Well, now I am beyond intrigued, and I'm looking forward to that. I
Yeah,
already
I'm not
like
saying
it's
anything
it's
else.
been a day, and I already can't wait for next week.
You're gonna have to pass Kenobi, so that is a very, very, very tall order.
Kenobi fan. Yeah. Yeah. It floored me. I mean, I was watching it with my mouth open, for the most part because I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. So,
And then you actually have to pass the glory that is Rogue One itself, which is what got me back into everything.
well, it's the best Star Wars on television. So I'm not including the movies. The movies are completely different, but from what I've seen from Disney Plus so far, that episode is just the top for me.
I love it. So now, obviously, he's escaped. He's gotten out. He's then crash landed, because he really doesn't know what he's doing. Then we cut to the Mothma estate, which I think, barring Naboo, might be some of the most beautiful architecture I've ever seen in Star Wars.
I agree. I absolutely agree. I don't know how much money they spent on this budget, but you could see it on the screen. I mean, the production design, the costume design, it's all fantastic. I love going to Chandrila because it's epic to see. You don't know, what you're going to see, what everyone is wearing, but you could tell that this is a family of wealth, and opulence. It's all there on the screen.
I know that you were saying pretty much the same thing as me as we were watching it, that like it's almost reminiscent of Naboo, but almost more modern-esque in a way. So now, and then we start learning about all of, a little deeper into the Chandrilan culture of the arranged marriage. Mon Mothma obviously starting to almost feel like she's maybe not in control of the situation or not as much as she thought she was.
Yeah, she is juggling a lot. She is, parent is a handful. He's, with the snide remarks. Tay Colmer, she's worried about him. Like, what is he up to? He's not, he wasn't, his demeanor this season is very different than what it was last season. Here he's at a point where he is defeated. He's got a lot going on in his life, and you can tell that there's something that he wanted to tell Mon Mothma, Mon Mothma, and couldn't get the words out, or he wasn't ready to tell her. But you knew that there was something that was bothering him. Then you had a daughter, who's being placed in this position. Um, Even though her daughter may be okay with an arranged marriage, but it was Mon who set everything in motion. And then dealing with Luthen, you know, she's got a lot going on, and Genevieve O'Reilly is just fantastic. Like she's like spinning plates at the same time, and she never loses her cool. I just don't know anyone who has this much pressure on them and can stay so calm. But she plays this role with so regal. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, it's a fantastic. Who knew that this character that we only saw for what 3 minutes in Return of the Jedi could be like one of the best characters ever created in Star Wars, because of Genevieve O'Reilly.
absolutely. And like you can see the entire time, like, and again, like absolute kudos to Genevieve that you can see she's playing into the anxiety of it. She's playing into the overwhelming pressure of it, but also maintaining that the cool and collected balanced with the chaotic and unprepared.
Yes. Yeah. And she does that pretty much throughout the entire season. So this is just the start. She's got a lot on her mind. She's got a lot to do, and she doesn't let up.
And as I'm watching this episode, when we see Tay trying to speak to her, the whole time I'm just thinking to myself, like, I don't trust him anymore. He's onto something. There's something going on there. He's gonna betray her, and I'm assuming they will eventually they'll revisit that. But something's gone horribly wrong from him lending her money to help out his friend to now he's almost got that desperate look of like a man who's he's in a corner, he's in a bind. There's some sort of pressure on him that he doesn't want to say.
It sounds like he's had some bad business dealings. Things went south for his businesses. His marriage is on the rocks. So yeah, that something like that would actually, make a man desperate. You know what I mean? So what does he need, and who does he get it from? So it's apparently he has a relationship with Skolden,
Yeah.
which is not the person that you want to have any kind of business relationship with. But it seems that they've been, um, you know, talking, buddy buddy. So so that causes concern for Mon.
And we've noticed that Tay doesn't necessarily exercise the best judgment decisions in this episode. He's drinking too much. He's being a little more kind of loose with his lips. Like, what's he whispering in these little kind of backroom dealings?
Yeah, and we'll find out. In episodes 2 and 3. The 3 episodes are dropped, but yeah, he's in a bad place, and I don't know if he's going to make it out.
The other one that caught my eye was Vel, who obviously is missing
Yeah.
Cinta and has no idea where she is or what she's doing. Um, she's got that look of like she's in over her head. She doesn't really know what her role is at this point.
Yeah, I think her. I think she's missing her soul, and her soul is Cinta. If I
Yeah,
can, um, she, of course, she is 100% behind the rebellion, but you could tell that there's something missing. Like there's an emptiness that she's portraying, and that has to do with Cinta. She doesn't know where she is. She doesn't know how to get in touch with her. She's reached out to Luthen to figure out where to find her, and Luthen is not giving her any information because he feels that they're better off apart than together. So yeah, so that's hurtful, and but she has to remain focused on, the mission. The mission still comes first. As if Cinta was in the room, Cinta would tell her the same thing. But for her, you know, Vel wears her heart on her sleeve, and she's really missing her, her other half. So yeah, it's going to be tough for her until she gets to see Cinta again, if she gets to see her again.
We can only hope.
Yeah.
So then we come off of Chandrila and we come back to I believe it was called what? We come back to what we find out ends up actually being Yavin 4, where he's now where Cass has crash landed with this TIE Avenger. And he finds this almost like this ragtag group of like marauders or like this ragtag rebel outfit that's missing their leader. And it's interesting that like even though he's a prisoner, he starts not so much being a leader to them, but he starts trying to subtly nudge them in certain ways of like, hey, this might be to your benefit. It's almost like his latent leadership traits that he's picked up in season one are kind of starting. They're not quite there, but they're starting to come to the forefront for him.
Well, he realizes that they have no idea what the hell they're doing.
It's like a Lord of the Flies situation where it's
Yeah.
like a bunch of kids running around.
I mean, half of that could have been all. And he just told them to. But instead, he's just like, no, you don't.
So yeah, no, now he's their prisoner. He doesn't know what he's doing. And then I think one of my favorite parts of the episode, we cut to the man, the myth, the legend himself, Orson Krennic, holding this
Ooh, boy.
secret Imperial meeting.
Boo, Krennic. Boo.
Where he's pulled in Partagaz and he's pulled in all these different agencies into this secret meeting where you get an almost Fallout style video about the history of Gorman, which any Legends fan is probably gonna recognize the name from the Gorman Massacre. Nice little throwback. But it's almost like this 1950s-esque informational video about it. And it's like it's got ISB written all over it.
I felt like I was watching a work train video. They also had an obligatory Tarkin mention.
Yep.
Boo, Tarkin. Actors do a wonderful job if you hate the characters that much.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it felt like it did. It felt like a promotional video for their planet. Like what they do well. We are the fabric makers. And we spin material, and this what we have is the best that you can buy anywhere in the galaxy. And look at how we're dressed and everything else. And I'm looking at this video, and I have the same look as all the other Imperials in the room. Like, well, why is this important? Yeah, okay, well, these people seem very harmless, so why, what do we need from these people? And then Krennic tells them what they need, So it's good to see Ben Mendelsohn back, so I'm glad. And the meeting reminded me of the Bad Batch episode with Tarkin, in a secret location that was high above somewhere else, and it was like a hidden fortress, and he has this meeting with all these high officials, and that's exactly the same feel I got from this meeting.
And I also love the fact that Krennic is very much not quite the same Krennic as in Rogue One. He's a little more forceful, a little more blunt, a little more or less nuanced, maybe. And that everything he's doing in the scene it's almost over exaggerated, which I think fits the character perfectly. Like he's, this is what the Empire needs. I was just talking to the Emperor. It's almost like he's going for the bragging rights, but it's like
I'm sorry, I was going to say, and you know why? Because Tarkin or Vader is not in the room. So I think those are the only two people that could put him in his place. So when he's not around them, like he feels like he's the boss and he can talk and he can say whatever he wants to the people in the room. But he's not that way if Tarkin is there. He barely says anything.
Yeah.
And God forbid if it's Vader, he's gonna get choked out. So he knows better. He knows when to show off and when to show off his power. And he knows when to, like, okay, let me just sit back and keep my mouth shut. You know what I mean? So, but that's the reason why.
I find his lack of common sense disturbing.
Exactly.
And then you've got all of these other Imperials, which you can tell they're all different agencies. I caught one that looked like they were from engineering. You've got scientists. You've got Deidre and Partagas from Imperial Security Bureau, and then you've got the two that are from the Empire's propaganda wing. And it's like they're almost going for the over the top. This is for the glory of the Empire. We need this, and we can spin this however we want. And it's like that arrogant fascist empire. It's we can do what we
Yes.
want. Nobody can stop us because we're gonna tell them what to do.
Yeah. And Krennic just puts a stop. Okay, okay, we get it, we get it, we get it. So basically, so what they're looking for is something that's buried in the ground. It's a mineral called calcite. It's essential for building the Death Star to coat the reactor lenses. Very interesting. Um, and it's and that's it. I mean, to me, it seems okay. Well, you're doing this is all about a mineral, okay, that is nowhere to be found anywhere else in the galaxy. He also mentioned that if the Empire can't find an alternative, then they're going to seize the Gorman calcite for themselves. Yes, I wonderful, but I just find it hard to believe that whatever it is you're looking for, this calcite is not available anywhere else where there are no lives and dangers that you have to, damage the planet's infrastructure to get at it. It's a very cruel thing to do. But of course, this is the Empire, right? This is what we expect them to do. But I just, it's just sad that this is it. This is whatever they want, they're going to go and get it. However it takes for them to get it, no matter how small it might be or immaterial we may think, like, okay, well, why do they need this? Yes, well, they need it for the Death Star. Could they have found an alternative? Well, maybe. Well, maybe they don't want to. Okay,
Yeah.
but according to Krennic, there is no alternative. But I don't know. It seems like spin to me. Like, okay, well, I'm sure they could have gotten this mineral someplace else. But something about Gorman, I think because they seem like peaceful people, and they don't bother anyone, and they're thriving, they're
Yeah.
wealthy, and I think Krennic is just there to just take that away from them, for no particular reason other than they look happy and they look like they're successful, and no one can be that successful. So now let's come in and just take that all away.
And they just do it so calmly and casual. Like, you can even see that Deidre is visibly uncomfortable with being a part of this operation, but they're just so casually talking about, yeah, we can get mining operations up within, a couple of weeks. If it goes wrong, we could destabilize the planet's core, but that's okay. That's a risk we're willing to take.
Yeah.
I love the fact that Tony Gilroy, he's not pulling punches with it. He's right into the heart of, okay, this is the Empire. It's bad. This is what they're doing. And that's why I'm looking forward to next week when we see, that 1 year skip of, what the heck happened in the last year. Because Deidre obviously is now she's a part of this, whether she wants to be or not. And, you don't get a choice in the Empire.
Yeah. Yeah. She was in that room for a reason. So she has a reputation. Not that it's a bad reputation, but as a matter of fact, I think the reason why she's there is because she does show initiative. She has good ideas. And I like the conversation that the two of them had near the window where she says that you need an insurgent, you need a Gorman insurgents to do the wrong thing. And that just perked Krennic's ears up, and he's gonna go along with that. Like, okay, yeah, well, what do we need to do to get Gorman to pick a fight with the Empire,
Yeah.
right?
And it sounds like there's already some minor squabbling there with certain inspections. So I think that's going to be the catalyst that she's going to, because I'm assuming she'll end up being in charge of this operation, but I think that's the catalyst she's going to use to trigger this insurgency.
Exactly, exactly. So these first three episodes are setting the stage for something big to happen. And like every week is just going to be exciting to watch these three episodes and then discuss it and then see what this is building to. You know, it's incredible.
That was actually so the reason that we thought this was a great series for us to kind of launch this series with is just because there's so much to take in. There's so many parallels to not only real world but to like our own history, where we've been, there's just so much to digest from it that it's you almost need to get, a panel of three people to dissect each episode.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot to take in, like I said, but if you know if you look at it like a spy thriller, you know, most spy thrillers, the good ones, it's not action packed, not always. It's really about the characters. It's about the setting, the situation, the communication going on between the characters. So the dialogue has to be top notch, right? In order for you to continue to stay invested.
Yeah.
And that's what Andor is. You know, like this can't exist without great writers, great performances, location. You know, it all has to work together in order for it to be successful. And Andor season one has done that. So we expect the same from season two.
So and we leave that part behind and we end up back on Yavin 4, which how cool is that? Like we're literally on Yavin 4, the place where all of this started. And we've come full circle right back to it. Like that's cool.
Yeah,
It's a good time to be a nerd.
yeah. I'm gonna have to watch that episode again to see if I can spot that it is Yavin 4. But you know, it was dark, so you really
Yeah.
couldn't tell. Um, Yeah, and a lot must have happened because, well, you know, not to jump ahead to the next two episodes, but you know, there are creatures on this planet that existed then that doesn't exist now once you get to the Battle of Yavin. Yavin.
Yeah.
So I don't know what took place on the planet, how they got rid of these creatures, you know, what they did, what happened to this ragtag team that started out that had no idea what they're doing. Did they all die or did they we don't know. So it's just very interesting to know that this used to be Yavin and that's not what we know of Yavin. You know, that's not what we're familiar with. So
Yeah.
how did it get from episode 1 to episode 12 is the question.
So then from there, so we're back on Yavin 4 now. We
Yeah.
see Cassian, he's been captured. He's being held by this ragtag group that don't have a leader and don't really know what they're doing. They just kind of exist. And he just has to sit there and, endure while they all just squabble amongst themselves and try to figure out, what do we do? Do we take his ship? Do we make him fly us? Do we just kill him? And he just starts using everything that he learned from Luthen. He's just subconsciously started using on them, why don't you do this? Maybe this would be a good idea. Just those little subtle nudges that you're just starting to see his real leadership start to emerge.
Yeah. But they're not really paying attention to him because
No.
they're just lost.
It's like it's like lost puppy dog eyes. They're just like,
Yeah. I'm surprised that they're that clueless at their age because you know these look like grown men and women in their 20s and 30s who you think would know better. It this is something that it bothered me about this group, that how can they be this naive and this inexperienced at that age? I know that they're starting the rebellion, but at least there has to be a leader. There needed to be someone to gather these people together and say, okay, here's where we're going. This is what we're doing. But when I saw this, like I just couldn't believe my eyes. Like, they seem annoying. They disloyal to each other. You would think that these rebels should have been played by teenagers. That's what they felt like to me. Like they were very immature. And I think it might have worked better if they were maybe teenagers and you can understand their inexperience. But, having these grown people act this way is just, it was disappointing to see. It was disappointing.
I have a feeling we're gonna end up finding. I'm gonna guess it's gonna be something like they're from a backwater planet, and this is their first time out, and it's just all gone wrong for them. So we leave this scene behind. We go back into the Imperial meeting where you see, the engineers talking about how we can have this operation up and running lickety split, no problem, sir. Dedra goes up to Krennic and tries to play it naive, and he sees right through it that she's had a plan to create an insurgency right from the get-go.
Yep.
And then we roll into my favorite part where we see B2 roll onto the screen. And you find out that
Yes.
the Empire is perhaps doing some little inspections.
Yes. Yeah. So we get to see the remnants of now I forgot the name of the planet
It's
escapes me.
almost like the remnants of Ferrix almost. It's like
Ferrix, yes, right. So we get to see what Bix is up to in Brasso and in B2 EMO, B2 EMO. So they're on this planet called Mineral. Seems like it's just a you know working class, working in the fields, the wheat fields.
the way that I've described it is it's effectively if you were to take the Canadian province of Saskatchewan and put it into space, that's exactly what it would look like. Just wheat
Yeah,
fields.
yeah, and they're just trying to make another life for themselves, but they're fugitives, so they're on the run, and the idea that the Empire is coming to visit them, you know, makes people nervous.
Then we roll back out to Chandrila to an absolutely beautiful scene where then we find out that Tay's in a little bit of trouble and Mon Mothma is seeming a little bit more worried that maybe not
Yes,
everything is going okay here. Maybe she's not quite as in control as she thought she was.
yeah, yeah. She's got a lot going on. She's very concerned about her friend. Um, she had no idea he was going through this much trouble, and she just doesn't know what he's going to do. Like, how desperate is he? Does that mean that, you know, he knows a lot? He knows about the funding. He knows about why Mon needs the money. What's he going to do? Is he going to tell Skolden? Is he going to, reveal her secrets to somebody else and just destroy this entire operation? It's a very tricky thing to handle. And how is she going to handle this? But we'll see.
And then we come up to the finale of the episode where all of this ragtag group starts squabbling again, doing effectively space rock paper scissors to try and figure out what are we going to do. And he very subtly sneaks his blaster out of a hidden compartment, ties up the guard, and he sneaks off into this TIE Avenger, and he just takes off and gets out of there.
Yeah, okay. He does. We're in episode 2 now?
This will
Or are
be
we
this is right at the end of episode 1, which is probably where we'll end up ending because we're coming up on time
okay?
again.
Right. So he does try to escape, but then he's held back. And then we see these rebels again in episode 2. But yeah, so remember when he lands, he was looking for someone named Porco. I
Yeah.
guess it was another pilot, maybe someone he was working with in the rebellion. And apparently, this group had no idea what happened to this pilot. They think Cassian is a part of the Empire because he's dressed like a TIE fighter pilot. Um, but, the idea was that Andor is supposed to pass off this TIE fighter to this next person and then get on another ship and then leave to head home to where Bix is. But that's not the case. We can't find a pilot. And, these knuckleheads that have no idea what they're doing just capture Andor and just
We'll see what happens.
yeah, yeah, so he's stuck. So really it's, to me, it having this happen slows down the action for me because you start off with this you know Andor going in and finding this TIE fighter and breaking out, and then he lands on this planet and we don't know who these people are, um, and he can't get to the next step. And they're the ones that, they're this barricade that is stopping him right now from getting to where he needs to be. And he just has to figure out, okay, well, how do I get past this barricade so that I can get off this planet so that I can go where I need to be? We'll find out in episode 2.
as we're coming up on our time. Kerwin, I want to thank you for coming on with us. It is great to see you again. It's been far too long since we chatted. Let's do this again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And congratulations once again. And I wish you all the best on your new podcast.
Thank you, my friends. Where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, X, Facebook at Father Son Galaxy. We have a YouTube channel. Just look for, just type in Father Son Galaxy.